Coffee with Caregivers production costs are covered by a partnership with United Healthcare and the National Foster Parent Association. We receive no federal or state funding and depend on our constituents and viewers to help us achieve our goals to provide support and services that meet identified needs within our mission. We would like to welcome the viewers of Coffee with Caregivers to the family. The National Foster Parent Association offers several membership opportunities for individuals, child placing agencies, and state and local affiliates. You can join today or donate at nfpaonline.org.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Caregivers. Another beautiful day here in Central Texas where I live. We've had lots of rain, and we had a sunny day yesterday and probably sunny most of the day today, and then this rain starts again. It's that rainy time of the year in the Austin area. My guest today is Jason Johnson, and Jason is also a Texan. And lives in the College Station area where we have the famous Texas A&M University. And of course, I live in Austin where we have the famous University of Texas. So there you go, right? Two big rivals, both awesome schools. We have an exciting show for you today. I think it's lots of information, and it's going to focus a lot on the foster dads, right? And the role and the impact that they have in the foster family. And oftentimes what I've viewed, is how involved are they? And I'm hoping Jason will speak to some of the elements of foster parenting, especially like in our situation. My husband always said, honey, you're such a strong personality that you don't leave a whole lot of room for me when it comes to some of this foster care stuff. And so, boy, did I have to kind of change my ways a little bit, right? As we entered our foster care journey all those years ago. Before that, though, I want to introduce my cup that I got. Again, another wonderful constituent sent this one to me. And it's a little bit hard to see because the writing is small. It's a very big cup, so it holds a lot of coffee. But it says, make today count. It's always a good reminder, isn't it? When we pick up our cup and the first thing we see is make today count. There are days when sometimes I'd rather be lazy, and figure out, can I just kind of bum around today and not be real productive? And then I see that and I realize that my days are numbered and I do need to make them count because I still got a lot on my plate to do. So, Jason, I know you've got a cup too. So would you please introduce yourself and tell our audience kind of the most important things you want them to know about yourself and certainly about your cup?
Sure. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm grateful to be here. And I actually am in the middle of a coffee right now with my favorite cup, and you'll notice it's a glass cup. And I was introduced to these actually from the Cheesecake Factory restaurant. So if you ever go to the Cheesecake Factory and you order coffee, they bring it in glass cups just like these. So as a special gift one time, several years ago, my wife, Emily, had ordered some glass cups from Cheesecake Factory and gave them to me as a gift. And so that's all that I drink out of now, while at home, of course. So I enjoy it. And I think we might be on our second round because, as you know, things get broken. So I think this might be our second round of Cheesecake Factory glass cups. But they're my favorite. Go to Cheesecake Factory, order a coffee, enjoy it, and maybe it'll convince you as well.
Well, I actually have had a cup of the Cheesecake Factory a few times. And
with our red velvet cheesecake. That's always our favorite. Red velvet cheesecake and a cup of coffee. That's a good time for us.
I agree. Well, I think everything there is good. So it's always hard to figure out which one do I try next, or do I just keep going back to my old favorite, right? But as well as the food they have on the menu too, besides their wonderful dessert. So yeah, it's a treat for us when we get to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your family.
Well, so I grew up in the Dallas area and came down, as you mentioned, to College Station to attend Texas A&M University, and that's where I met my wife. We met our senior year in class, and we were married shortly after graduation. We've been married this summer, and next month actually will be 19 years, which is wild to even be able to say. And we ended up after graduation in Houston for almost 12 years, different parts of the city. And it was there that, we left College Station right after graduation, married with no kids. And we came back from Houston to College Station with a bunch of kids. Right? So we have 4 daughters, and they range in age from almost 16, almost 14, almost 12. And our youngest just turned 9. My wife and I became foster parents in Houston in 2012. And at the time, I was actually pastoring our church there. And our youngest, who is now 9, actually came to us through the foster care system. And after about a 2-year case, it ended up that unfortunately she was not able to go home. And so she since became our daughter. And we've had other little girls come and go. So we've only had little girls in our home. We wouldn't do that to a little boy. I think a caseworker would show up on our door at our doorstep with a boy, and he'd look in our house and go, "Are you kidding me? It's all girl stuff." So we feel very comfortable with girls, and then our story actually evolved a little bit from kind of bringing in younger age girls to having the opportunity about 5 years ago for the first time to open our home to a mom and her babies. The first one, she was 23. She had just given birth to twin baby girls. So now here's a whole lot more girls now in our home, mom and 2 twin girls. And the objective there was we wanted to work with her to keep her little girls out of foster care. She was 23. She wasn't in foster care, but high risk situation for her little ones. And so we worked with her. And then after that, we had a 17-year-old in foster care come into our home who had just had a little baby. And she is very much a part of our life still. She's now 21, and she's got more than one baby now, and not without her struggles. But, the difference now is she's not alone. Right. And she doesn't have to struggle alone, and she doesn't have to fight alone. And we're there. And so our families have been engrafted into one another in some very beautiful ways, and then in some very, sometimes frustrating ways, but that's just part of it. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of our foster care journey that began in 2012. And, and I'll say this, my wife was far more ready to foster than I was at the time. And our church was fairly brand new, just a couple of years old. I was leading it. We had 3 little girls at the time. And, and I had, in my mind, my linear kind of well planned out mind deduced that this is probably the absolute worst time in the history of time for us to become foster parents. We're super busy. The kids are real young. And we had cordial conversations for quite a while, actually. And even it began long before we were even married, frankly. I had always felt like adoption would be a part of my story one day. It's actually a part of my story, my history. And then even before I had met my wife, that had been placed on her heart as well. And so when we came together, we had the adoption conversation. And maybe like many listening now, it was a one-day conversation, meaning one day we'd like to do that. One day when, let's say when the kids are the right age, when life is slowed down enough, when we've got enough money, and maybe others can relate to this, but that one day thing is kind of it's a nebulous, you like never arrive there, right? Like right. It's never the right one day. And for me, I just felt like at that time, it's definitely not the right one day. But my wife, said, finally one night came to me and said, you know what, there's never going to be a perfect time for us to do this. There's kids out there who need us now, and it's just time for us to do it. And she walked away upstairs, and about 15 minutes later, I followed her upstairs. I'll never forget it, and said, you know what, you're right. I trust you, and I trust what we believe the Lord had put on her heart, and so we show up at orientation class. It was just simple next step. I said, okay, we're not. I can't do jump off the high dive into the deep end like next step, but what's the next simple next step that I can take? And so we show up at orientation class, and of course everything changed for me there. When we were in the room with other people and we're hearing the presenter, and I just thought, well, why have I been fighting against this for so long? Yeah.
Well, when you talk about Lord speaking to your wife's heart, he did. Because he did to me too.
Yeah.
About those experiences,
Absolutely.
And I've talked about it before on the Coffee with Caregivers, but briefly, we wanted to have a large family and found out, I guess, 3 years into our marriage which is be 55 years this July, Jason.
Wow.
So,
yeah. So 19
19
doesn't sound very long compared to that.
But that we weren't going to be having biological children, and I started feeling so sorry for myself and all that.
Sure.
And I was walking by the mantle one day, going to the bedroom or something, and my Bible is always on that mantle, and just something, and I know it was the Lord talking to me saying, Irene, you need to open your Bible. And I went, And I walked on and did whatever chore I was going to do, right? Came back by to go back to the kitchen. Here I'm walking back by that mantle with the Bible. And again, it was clear, Irene, you need to open your Bible like that. Mm-hmm. And I went, okay. So I literally picked it up and did this. That's what I did. And I saw one verse. It looked this big to me. And it said, and he will take the barren woman and make her the happy mother of many children. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Last verse of Psalm 113. I don't ever remember reading that verse before. I've studied the Bible my life, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that the direction was there. There's lots of other ways to have a family.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we started the process as well for adoption and to foster. And, it totally changed direction in my life and to change direction in my husband's life. And for people who weren't able to do biologically what other folks tend to do, and we think everybody's going to be able to do. Today, we have 23 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, 2 more in production through the end of this summer. Wow. How we never know where these kinds of decisions are going to take us, especially in foster care that then oftentimes leads to adoption as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I often say, especially to dads, to husbands, I grew up in a tradition that taught, in some form, in some way, the husbands lead your homes and lead your wives. And, it's funny because what exactly does that mean? And I don't know that there isn't exactly what that means. So, we're surrounded by college students now, and we love it living in College Station. And there's been times that I've met with some college guys that, maybe they're married and we're doing premarital counseling, and he'll say, Jason, tell me what it means to spiritually lead my wife, or to lead my home, to lead my wife. And I said, well, I mean, I can give you a few principles, but I don't know your wife. I'm not married to her. Like it'll be so unique to her and how she needs you to be a help and a lead. But I grew up in a tradition that said lead. And, I actually found through our conversations of considering foster care that, that night when she said, it's time for us to do it, there's not a perfect time. She walked upstairs, and 15 minutes later, I followed her. And I discovered in that moment, sometimes the absolute best way to lead my wife is to follow her and to trust what has been put on her heart. And to let her kind of bring us out to where we need to be so that I can see it. And I can go, okay, this is where we need to be. And now how do I lead well in this? And I think that's just part of the relationship, husband and wife. Sometimes one of us needs to lead and the other one needs to trust, and we're doing this together. And, so often we'll say, there's kind of an old saying out there, you need to be on the same page, or you need to be on the same page, you need to be on the same page. And I completely get the sentiment, and to a certain degree, I agree with it. But I often find that tends to paralyze people sometimes, right? Like, until we are on the exact same page at the exact same moment, we can't do anything.
Right.
And so what I like to say is, well, I think maybe what's more important is that you're at least reading the same book, right? Like, you agree that this is something that's good and we need to do, and we believe in this. And now one spouse might be on page 200, like my wife, and the other spouse might be still in the table of contents trying to figure out what this book is all about, like me. But at least we were reading the same book, right? And so she needed to be willing to slow down a little bit, and I needed to have the courage to kind of speed up a little bit, right? And then eventually we met where we needed to meet. And so I would just encourage, if anyone's listening and you feel like, I just don't know, it doesn't feel like we're on the same page, I might challenge you to ask, and maybe even have a conversation with your spouse. Are we at least reading the same book? And if you are, celebrate that. And then kind of come up with, what does it look like for us over the next number of weeks or months to work together to eventually meet on the same page, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to do a lot of pre-service training for foster families, and in the San Antonio area, and we'd have people come into our training classes, and spouses, and the foster mother would be so excited to be there and learning about foster parenting, and the husband sitting there kind of and not saying much. And then when you ask him a question, well, it's my wife's thing. That's what she wants to do, fine, but not engaged. And I always thought it was interesting that kind of by the time we got through with the training sessions over a period of weeks, how engaged many of these fellows became, because they got more information. They needed more information. They processed information different. They needed to hear it in different ways. They needed to talk to each other at the breaks, right? All those things that developed some camaraderie and some understanding, and that they weren't on this alone. These other guys were kind of feeling the same way.
Right.
Those are guys were saying, we want to do this.
Yeah.
And so many of those fellas were just wonderful foster fathers.
Yeah.
I mean, they changed diapers and fed babies and corralled, 4-year-olds, and taught 16-year-olds to drive. I mean, but it's a process, like you say. I think that's really important for people to understand, particularly those that are thinking about becoming foster parents, are new and trying to figure it out, because everybody's flying by the seat of their pants at that point, right? We don't know how really to meet the needs of other people's children 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's different than a counseling session or teaching Sunday school, or even being a school teacher for those hours. It's constant. And
in your home.
And it's different. And we have to deal with their family and those dynamics and all the trauma. And no matter how many classes you sit through to begin this process before you finally get that license or certification or whatever they call it in your state, can't explain it all to you.
Right.
It can tell you the dynamics of things, but it can't explain to you the emotions that come with it, right?
Absolutely.
The stressors that can come with it, the surprises that can come with it, and good ones and bad ones. It's the old saying is the greatest thing you'll ever do, but the hardest thing you've ever done. Is true. It is. And so I'm always excited when I hear a foster dad speaking out and providing some leadership. It seems like it's the ladies that are out there leading the associations and, the support groups and those things. And attending the foster parent meetings. Maybe Dad's probably at home with the kids. And so it's good that when I learned about you and that you have a blog. And so I'd like for you to tell us about that. How did you, what led you to start the blog and the kinds of things that you address on your blog?
Sure, absolutely. As I mentioned, when we became foster parents, I was still pastoring our church on the north side of Houston. And like you said, I quickly discovered that this particular space was filled with a lot of really excellent female voices, foster mom voices, whether it be in online blogs or, like you said, leading ministries in their church, or just advocating, or even I even discovered it even probably earlier than that, even in the licensing and training process, where literally every caseworker we met was a female. Every person who led the different training sessions was a female, and by no means am I demeaning that. It was just a matter of fact. Like, okay, there's a lot of females. So where are the guys? That was my question. Like, where are the guys? Where's the guys? And as then when we opened our home, and like you said, I often say that like the goal of training to become a foster parent is not to prepare you for everything. It's on one hand to eliminate the element of some of the surprises, right? Like, hey, we need to tell you that this is probably going to happen, but we can't fully prepare you for when it's going to happen. But we can give you some tools and give you some connections. I think it's Mike Tyson who said, everyone's got a plan going into the ring until they get punched in the face. And then your plan gets thrown out the window. You're scrambling, right? And if that's not a lot of days in foster care, I don't know what is, right? We've gone to trauma training, TBRI, and we've sat under the leadership of the late Dr. Karen Purvis. And we've got all the tools to really deal with trauma and help connect with kids. And then we get punched in the face, right? Now what do we do? But also it's just proximity, right? It brings, if you get a little bit closer. And so, like you said, like for me, I went to the orientation class and now I'm a little bit closer and I'm starting to read the book a little bit faster and catch up to my wife a little bit. And it's like this. I know at some point you get to this point where you know just enough to be a little bit afraid, but you know too much now to let fear have the final say, and when you get to that point, that's when you know, okay, now we're at the tipping point. I know just enough to know that this is going to be hard and I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I know way too much about what's going on in our city and what's going on in families. And that is largely, if we want it to be, we can kind of set up lives where a lot of that's hidden. We don't have to see it. We can avoid it. We can pretend like it's not there. But when you're confronted with it, you go, wow, I know too much now to pretend like this isn't a thing. And I need to do something. And that's really my heart for guys. So started writing the blog just to be a male voice. I'm not overly emotional. I tend to be a little bit more linear. And I think a lot of guys might be like that. And of course, we're making generalizations here. Sometimes it's the husband that's further out ahead than the wife. But, I really want to encourage families. I really want to encourage those who are already doing it, those who are considering getting involved. And in particular, I want to be a male voice that other men can relate to. And so some of the hesitancy sometimes that I see in husbands or men when it comes to foster care, some of my favorite writers are guys named Chip and Dan Heath, and they write some great organizational leadership books. And in one of their books, they made this statement. They said, sometimes what feels like resistance is often just a lack of clarity in people. And I love that, right? It might not be that someone is against XYZ. It might just be they're not real clear about what XYZ is, right?
Right.
And I think that applies in a number of different contexts, but particularly for men, when it comes to engaging in this space, I like to kind of pull out, look, you may have kind of this God ingrained desire to protect, right? Protect your family, protect your marriage, kind of a God ingrained need to just kind of see it all kind of laid out, like the linear process, and just kind of, process it a little bit more of what's the next step and what's this. And those are good things. And so how can we leverage those things? And so for me, one of my points of resistance, what I felt like was resistance, was our daughters at the time were 6, 4, and 2. And I felt this need to protect my family as dad. And then I show up at orientation class, and the instructor starts sharing a story about a little girl whose case came across her desk that week, who fell right into the middle of the ages of my little girl. And as you can imagine, just some of the things that this little girl had experienced were horrific. And I found myself sitting there getting angry, thinking, I would give my life to protect my little girl from this. How come no one is there to protect that little girl from this? And then, of course, the light bulb goes off. Oh, I see what you just did there, God, right? Like, my desire to protect is a good thing. That I just felt like the Lord was saying, I want you to use that desire to protect and expand its parameters a little bit, right? So I just want to encourage dads and husbands. Your need to protect is good. That's a good thing. And consider how that might be applied in other contexts, beyond your family. Absolutely. Your need to kind of have things laid out a little more linear, to just kind of organize and have it laid out. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Don't see it as a point of resistance. Just see it as, I just need more clarity. And when I get more clarity, then I can keep moving forward a little bit. So that's really the heart of the blog, and a lot of what you'll find there, just encouraging families like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How would people find your blog?
Yeah, so if they go to, it's real simple. We actually spend a lot of time trying to figure out, do we make a cool name for it, and make it fun, and then finally somebody said, why don't we just make it simple? It's like jasonjohnsonblog.com.
There you go.
It works for me. Super simple. So jasonjohnsonblog.com, and you'll find a number of different articles and videos and resources and books, and even a new opportunity coming up just for dads here in the month of June. You'll find that on there as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, actually, that's how I first got drawn to you, was I saw an email that came through from you about this month-long journey that you're trying to do uniquely. I'm reading here, designed to encourage and inspire foster dads. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to this man soon. Maybe we can help spread the word and get more dads connected to you, not only for your blog, but for this special month-long event.
Yeah. So again, we got super creative with it, and came up with a really clever name, and the name is For Foster Dads. Couldn't be more simple. So if you go to forfosterdads.com, you'll find it there, and it will be a journey through the month of June, and it's very simple. Each week you'll get a couple of emails with different resources. It's all self-paced, so do it at your own time. If that means 5 a.m, 11 p.m, lunch break during the day, whatever. And then a couple of times during the month, we'll have some live Zoom Connect opportunities, if you're able, just to connect and share ideas. And last I checked, we had about 500 dads signed up, which is great.
That's wonderful.
And so we just want to create that unique space just for men and for dads to get together. And like you said, be reminded, there's camaraderie here. We're not alone. There's other crazy guys out there just like us. That's the thing is, when we're kind of isolated and on our own, we start to feel a little bit crazy. Like, am I crazy? And I think, yeah, I feel like I am. I'm a little bit crazy. I feel crazy. People look at me like we're crazy. Maybe your friends or your family or your coworkers look at you like, you're crazy, man. You know,
right.
And it is a little bit crazy because it's swimming upstream. You know, it's the world around us says, hey, you're supposed to pursue comfort and convenience and make things easy, and you're purposely doing hard things. That's crazy. And you're like, yeah, it is a little bit crazy, but it's so good every once in a while to be in a space with other people who live that crazy, and you go, oh, okay, this feels good. These are my people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why, when foster mothers get together, and oftentimes, like I said, at support groups or whatever, it's mostly the ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And, they can talk about their real feelings, their experiences, because they know that everybody sitting around that table or in that room has been there.
Yeah, they get it. Yeah.
And they understand it. And if you need to cry about it, you can cry about it. If you need to laugh hysterically about it, and it's really not funny, but you have to survive.
That's right.
There's some humor. They can all laugh with you. The foster moms, we've had that opportunity to get together and talk and laugh and cry and share so much more than the dads.
Mm-hmm.
And I know women can do that easier, I think, just personality wise and how we're made up. But it's really important for the dads to have that opportunity too. And I know it was really important for my husband when they started doing for dads only workshops at various conferences. He'd be signed up for those right away because it was a place to talk about how he felt amongst other fathers. So
absolutely. And we often say it this way, there's going to be a couple of categories of people in your life, or a few. There's going to be people who think you're crazy and avoid you, and I don't get it and stay away. But then mostly there's going to be other two categories, people who love you. And they love you. We want to support you any way we can. Can we bring a meal? Can we help babysit? Can we do this? And then there's going to be people who get you. And the people who love you may not always get you. They don't really get the nuances and the complications and the good and the bad. They don't get the experience. And so creating space for those people in your life. And if you're a church or an agency or an organization, creating space for those categories of people in foster families' lives, I think is important, that we want to surround them with people who love them and can practically, tangibly support them. But we also want to create space for them to connect with people who get them. And like you said, we can sit down and we can share things, and everyone around the table goes, yeah, completely get it. This is a safe place. We get you. Yeah. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And so that's our goal with dads through the month of June. And then we'll see what happens there. No plan after that other than let's just make it an encouraging time and a time for them to connect, and that's just uniquely for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope that the moms that are on here will tell their husbands about this.
That's right. I think we're getting a lot of wives signing their husbands up. Their husbands are probably getting emails going, what did I sign up for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if we have some caseworkers, case managers, social workers who work with families that are listening today, spread the word. The dads need this. I was talking to my husband about it again earlier this morning, and he said, oh my gosh, there's never enough for the dads. And oftentimes they don't want to participate because they think, well, then I look weak. And that is not the case at all. I think it makes you stronger. It makes you look stronger because you want to be the best you can be as a father to the children who live in your family. So I think it's really important to do that, and that we share this kind of thing. And I alluded to you, I think, prior to this recording that we were doing this morning, is that this whole Coffee with Caregivers program was born out of isolation when the pandemic started last year, and us getting a lot of calls and emails from foster parents all across this country saying, I can't even get anybody to talk to me. Nobody's coming to my house. Before I'd like, oh, not another visit, right? And now I would just die to have a visit. I need the interaction. I've got to talk to some adults. I have some things I need to ask about how to manage things with the kids. And I can't even get anybody to return my call. And they were feeling so isolated. And I'm so thankful to the National Foster Parent Association Board of Directors for taking a suggestion by somebody not on the board, but very supportive of our organization, and saying, why don't y'all do some kind of a Facebook thing? Talk to people, let them know you're here, let them know you want it, you're listening, that you care, and share some ideas with them, have a conversation. And so that's how this whole thing got started. And every week we are able to highlight a new guest and something about them that may be a little bit different or innovative, book author or blog writer or whatever that might be. But we need to seize the opportunities when we can get them. And that's why I was so excited when I saw that you were having a whole month of things every week for dads, because we don't find enough of those things available. Yeah. And then they got your blog that they can be a part of as long as they want to.
Yeah. So and we can connect on Facebook at the same name, Jason Johnson blog. And so I appreciate you having me on and being willing to share.
Well, thank you. And I'll remind our audience that they can always find this episode on Facebook, but it's also on our YouTube channel, and our website, our main website, has all the episodes archived. So anybody can go there at nfpaonline.org and watch as many episodes as they like to. And the other thing is, if you've got a topic that you want us to highlight, or a guest that you feel would be beneficial for others to listen to, please let us know that. You can get me at info@nfpaonline.org, and I'll take it all to heart and get back with you. So Jason, again, thank you so much. You've been a blessing, certainly to me, and I know to others as they listen to this program. And just want the very best for you and your family as you move forward. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with our friends at United Healthcare. For more information about United Healthcare, please visit www.uhc.com.